Morning, ECOS line team. Welcome to our live line training center here in South Carolina, where we started this grassroots nationwide movement, electric culture of safety, creating and fostering a line team nationwide. It's been an amazing ride, and Mr. Lito here is today. He's going to be with us today. He's going to be doing our first double header, and it's been amazing. Today it's going to be a little rainy. We got a little breeze. We got some birds flying around because South Carolina is like a bird sanctuary because we get rain here and we got a lot of plants and bushes and things that they like. So this could be interesting today. I met Mr. Lito about 3 years ago at the Incident Prevention Conference in Dallas, Texas, face to face. And we hit it off right away, and we're good buds now. He's my line brother. And I came to him. He's one of the couple of handfuls of people that I walked up to with this idea of starting national lineman safety national webinars. And he said, man, I'm all in. I want to do that. In fact, what's amazing is he was here in the spring of 2022, and he actually did and presented My Shocking Awakening, which is a must-have video to share with your line crews from time to time. It'll bring a tear to your eye, man. I don't care how tough you are. And it is just amazing. And it's the first time Mr. Jeremy and his videographing crew was here and videotaped it. So it went really well under the tent, and it was nice. And so Lito did a really good job. We're actually going to make that the 2022 Lineman Safety National Webinar of the Year. And so next week, we're going to put it on electriccultureofsafety.com. It'll be public, and so it'll be available to everybody freely. So anyways, we have 14,000 plus members now, Electric Culture of Safety, after just almost 3 years. This coming up February will be 3 full years. And just hope you all are receiving these. Contact us. The information will be on the slides later on, and as far as contacting us and getting all these topics. These folks are coming from all over the country. Lito, he came here from California yesterday, and he's sponsoring himself. He paid for this out of his own pocket because he cares about what he's doing and he cares about you all. And in that heart and that mindset is what we're trying to foster here. And he's giving back to our industry, which is amazing. So, Lito, welcome aboard, brother.
Thanks, man.
Okay.
Good to see you, Brent.
Yeah, good to see you, man.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Man, it's great to have you. I know you brought your son here, showing him South Carolina, having some good time around Old Town Charleston and such. So we want to hear a little bit about Lito. Tell us about Lito, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your beginnings.
Yeah, Lito grew up in a small town, joined the military as a junior in high school to get out of that small town and go see the world, and ended up back in that small town. So ended up coming back around, met my wife, started a family, but the task that I selected for my military career really didn't transition into civilian life, which was loading bombs and guns on airplanes. And so, after getting out of the military, the only people that were hiring that in the civilian sector was ISIS. And so I figured that's not where I wanted to go. Found my way to line work, got into the apprenticeship at the utility there in California, and fell in love with the trade. Got on the big wire, started working in transmission projects, and that was where I wanted to be. And then in 2015, most of you know my accident. I got lit up by some induced voltage on a 500 kV tower, and it changed my life. I lived through it. Was blessed to be able to make the changes I needed to make in order to work safely. Recognizing that not only I was the one making those mistakes, is why I'm here to do this. I see these, I've been, since 2015, I've been on the safety side of things, out there with crews, working with crews, coaching, training, and I see the assumptions that I made, the assumptions that people make all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to do my part and help out so that nobody has to go through what I went through to learn that they got to make some changes in their safety program.
Yeah, that's awesome. You all will have Lito's information, contact information. He actually began a company, Leading Safe Lineworkers. How long ago was that, Lito?
Last year.
Last year?
Yeah, June.
Okay, June. Okay. And Lito's also on LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn.
Yep.
So connect with Lito. He puts out several every month. I've seen them. Very good, solid information regarding safety and regarding thinking about it and keeping a mindset of safety, your core value, and the consciousness of safety inside. So definitely read up on what he shares and get to know Lito, get to know his services that he offers. He offers an amazing service and great topics. And today's going to be, man, when Lito told me that today, the assumption trap, his topic today, and he said, hey, I'm going to have you sit by me and we're going to go over it together. And it's like, dang, Lito, okay, man, let's just go for it. So I don't know what he's got up, because I don't like to premeditate on anything, so we'll see how this flows. And so what about Lito projecting out tomorrow? What about Lito tomorrow?
Lito tomorrow?
Yeah, what are you thinking, man?
Man, if I could have more time and see more people and just be out there connecting with people about this, because that's why I wanted to come to do this webinar with you. It's important that people hear my message and understand these assumptions. When I look, all the incidents that I've investigated, looked at, reviewed over the past few years that I've been in safety, I can pull assumptions that were made throughout the day for each one of the employees that were involved in that incident. Where, you know, if we captured those assumptions, challenged them, questioned them beforehand, they wouldn't have had an incident, you know. And so getting people on this side of that, so that they know what to look for, they know what changes they need to make, that's what drives me to do what I do, you know. And I work full time for a contractor in California as a safety director. My passion is with my employees, but my passion's with the trade and the men and women working out in the field and making sure that they get home at the end of the day, because that's the number one goal. No matter what we're doing that day, I don't care what project you're on, how close we are, how much money we're going to make on it. Everybody, that project is not successful unless everybody on that project made it home at the end of the day, at the end of the project, at the end of the year. You know? No,
I'm excited. So let's see, Lito, let's roll, man.
All right,
let's roll, brother.
So this is new for me, Brent. I've never done, you know, usually I do a presentation standing in front, but I like to talk to people. I like to interact with people. I get people, when I'm with groups, I try to get people from the audience to come up and you know, let's work through something, you know, get their minds working, get them talking too. And so I wanted to sit down with you because you're in the field a lot. You see a lot of people. You know, a lot of crews get the opportunity to be trained by you and Joe, you know. And so I wanted to talk to you about this and get some feedback from you on assumptions. And so as we go through this, you know, there'll be questions that I'll have for you. There'll be questions that I have for the audience as well. Feel free, if you're live right now, to voice your answers in the chat. You know, and if you're watching this recording, I'm putting these questions out so you can think about them. Think about your answer. Think about how you would respond to these certain questions. But before we get into that, I really want to take a moment. I was a bare hand lineman. That was where I wanted to be. That I wanted to work live energized, you know, transmission voltages. And when I had my accident, that's what we were doing. And anytime we would go and become energized, we would stop beforehand and say, hey, bonding on, so that everybody on the job site knew, hey, I'm going hot, right? And I would not go hot until I heard everybody say bonding on. If I heard everybody say bonding on, I got people watching me on the ground, and everybody knows we're about to come hot. You know, stuff's getting you know, getting ready. We're getting ready to go.
Getting real, baby.
Getting real, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I want to stop right now before we get into this conversation, because when I think about bonding on, there's another level to it, right? What are we doing when we're bonded on, Brent?
Man, we're connecting.
We're connecting, right? We're bringing differences of potential all in one, right?
That's right.
So if I'm in a bare hand suit and I come in contact with that conductor, those two differences of potential are one, right?
That's right.
Same with grounding, right? Anytime we're bonding and grounding, we're bringing everything to that same potential, right? Mm-hmm. I want us to take a moment before we get into this and we open our minds and start talking about this topic here to come together as a line team and connect, bond on.
Yep.
And so if you guys can do that with me, bonding on, let's go. Okay.
Bonding on. Let's go, brother.
So moving into it, what is the assumption trap? Okay. The assumption trap is essentially a road. Each and every one of us, I don't think there's nobody in the world that doesn't make an assumption throughout the day. Assumption is a tool that we use. Our brain looks for opportunities to make things easier in life, right? And so when we get into a routine, we start doing things, and if something's, if we're able to go into autopilot and do something, our brain's going to take the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
But in our line of work, we can't trust in those assumptions. We can't trust in that autopilot mode because there are so many variables that play into a situation. We can walk in there and do something and trust an assumption one day, and the next day come in and there'll be one thing out of place that we didn't identify that'll kill us, right? And when you think about it, the easiest one to go back to, we all drive. Everybody drives, right? You drove here. How often do you drive here from your house?
Man, probably at least 10 to sometimes 20 times a month.
So you know the path.
Know the path. Yep.
Can you identify every stoplight that you stopped at?
Yeah, pretty much.
You remember those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're on.
I'm on.
Okay. Because I can tell you there's times when I get to my location, sometimes I'm like, sometimes I'll listen to a podcast and I'll get deep into listening to something, but sometimes I just turn everything off and I'm deep in thought. I'm thinking about the next thing that I want to work on,
right?
Or where I'm going to, who I want to train, or what we're training, training topic. And I'll get to the location, I'll be like, wow, dude, I don't even remember how I got here. Like, I know I drove here, but because I drive here all the time, I know the path and it's easy, And I was talking to my son on the way here this morning because we were kind of having a conversation about this, right? And I said, it's like when I drive you and your sisters to school.
Right.
Right? That path is easy.
Right.
Right? But all it takes is one thing out of place. And when we're driving, what's that one thing that's out of place? Every day is different. Other drivers. We can't control what other drivers are going to do. We don't know what they're going to do. Right? So we can't go on autopilot, even with a simple thing that we do every day, which is driving. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're working through. With the first stop in the assumption trap here is routine, right? Routines become so familiar that they make us feel stable, right? They make us feel comfortable in what we're doing, right? That comfort is that familiarity in the things that we do. If we do it enough, we become comfortable in doing it. And I've seen crews out on job sites where you've been together for a while. And you guys get in an autopilot because you've been together and you connected so well.
That's right.
That you're able to move through things freely and not really, need to stop and question. We can't be there. We can't be at that point. No matter how good a crew is, you can't be at that point. You always got to stop, take a moment to assess the situation, look for hazards, because there's not 2 job sites that are identical.
Right.
I don't care where you are. You can be in the flats putting up a new pole line, and it's every job site, every pole is going to have a different set of issues.
Yeah.
Where your truck's set up, how you set the truck up, who set the truck up, how the ground is at that job location, what's in the ground at that job location. There's so many variables that play into it. When I had my accident, I had been climbing. When I came up through the apprenticeship, it was still free climbing. 2015 is when 100% fall protection came in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And up to that day, I had never belted off until I got to my work location.
Right.
I started at the foot of the tower, climbed up to where I needed to be, and then I belted off, right? How many times did I get away with something, right? Because you never know when you're going to need that. When I got locked up on that OPGW that was energized with induced voltage from the 500, I didn't know that day that was going to happen, and I was going to need that fall protection to fall into.
That's right.
Right. So now I'm
And
stuck
you
on
didn't
the
plan
skill.
that it was going to
No.
happen.
You don't know. You don't know.
You didn't say, "Hey, today I'm going to get hurt." You don't think like that. We don't think like that.
No. We don't know what we don't know.
That's right.
On any given day. And so we need to be on point every day, questioning assumptions that come up. That the third stop in it is that assumption. Once we get familiar with things, we start assuming that it's going to be the same way as it was in the past.
Our crew's going to be acting the same as they did yesterday.
Yep.
The other job prior to this job, we assume that they're going to all be in the same condition.
Yep. Conditions, even like you said, the team that you're with.
Yeah.
Somebody could have had a falling out with their partner that night and not been on point, right? My crew probably thought everybody was on point that day, and when I got to the job site that day, I assumed that because we always take the helicopter and fly the job sites, all the tower locations that we're going to be working, that it happened.
Right.
But because I didn't voice that, the crew, thinking that everything was good, didn't know, right? And I, thinking that they took care of it, didn't know.
And it didn't happen.
And that's what happened.
Yeah, it did not happen. Yeah.
So so that this all leads to adding more risk to a job that we are surrounded by risk every day, that we're mitigating hazards. During our JHA, the unspeakable, the unspoken things, those assumptions are just adding more risk to an already hazardous job, right? And so I'll ask you something, Brent. You know what these is? You've used these, right?
I've used those. Yeah.
So you think you're pretty fluent at setting a trap?
Pretty fluent.
You
man.
can do it really good.
I can do it very well.
Okay. Would you do it with a blindfold on?
No, sir. I would not.
You wouldn't do that with a blindfold on. You're not that good?
No, I'm good, but I want to see the mechanism clearly.
I'll make sure it's engaged
before you must.
Yeah.
And the blindfold, you don't have that assurity, and there's huge risks that I'm gonna take on because I assume I'm really good at this job, this task. I know I am, but I assume by not seeing that I'm good enough to do it blindfolded, I can't do that. I would not do that to the crew, to myself, to anybody.
Yeah. So think about that, right? You got that blindfold on, you think you're good, you're going right, and snap. This little thing, you're gonna probably pinch your finger. It's gonna hurt, right?
Oh yeah, you'll feel it.
Okay. So when we trust an assumption, right? We don't question it. We just go with it because we think because it was good yesterday or because it was good maybe an hour ago before lunch, right? And we don't challenge that assumption, we're walking into the job site blindfolded. You might as well throw a blindfold on and walk in and try to do your job blindfolded.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's I think the best analogy for it, Brent, because like I said, you don't know what you don't know, right? And if you there's assumptions out there you haven't identified, then you're gonna get hurt.
Again, we didn't rehearse anything. Because I don't like doing that. I like to go on the gut and your giftings inside and trust in those giftings. But anyways, like this mouse trap. So basically, I see the allegory here, the analogy, symbolism, that when you lead your life, assuming you're leading your life into a trap, into a snare, and the potential for that trap to release and capture you and get you is just huge. Like you're saying, Lito, like blindfolded, the assumptions basically is a blindfolded, unseen risk. And I like that. I like the analogy. Very good, brother.
Yeah. And so the purpose of this presentation and this conversation that we're having here is for us to understand that routine can end up leading us into risk. Right.
Absolutely.
My other presentation will talk about how we can mitigate that, what tools we can use to identify assumptions and bring them out, so that
Nice.
we're not just going in blind.
Yeah.
Because you would how do you know that there are assumptions out there, right?
Right.
So we'll be able to talk through that. Why do we fall into the trap? Why do you think that is?
Wow. So again, I think you covered some of it as far as familiarity, as far as knowing how to do the job so well that you become you kind of fall away from the rules. You kind of fall away from following the compliance. You kind of fall away from maybe connecting with one another, and you become that solo thinker individual, and you forget about the line team, you forget about the huddle, and the job briefs become similar to the day before and the other days when the scenario is completely different, but yet the job brief is the same. So there's a complacency that I think that builds, that I've seen in the crews pretty much everywhere I go. I capture it, even from the higher ups, even from the trainers, even from operations managers, superintendents. I see this, and it kind of taints that line team mentality and that value. So explain that. Give that to us.
Yeah. So this slide, it fits it perfectly, right? The assumption trap is basically a storm on the horizon, just waiting, right?
Yeah.
And these 6 items here that are around that assumption trap feed into that storm. And so the first one I wanted to talk about is familiarity.
Yeah.
You brought it up. We've been talking about it since the beginning here, and repetition. And one of my clients I worked with last year, they came to me end of the year because they had 12 work procedure errors, right? And they can't figure out what's going on, why they keep having these procedures, or there's missteps, there's miscommunication, there's all kinds of things happening. As I reviewed some of the incidents, it wasn't like, okay, you got a new crew. It wasn't like an apprentice made a mistake. It wasn't, some of it was there was an apprentice that the incident happened with. There was one with a 40-year getting ready to retire lineman.
Wow.
Who sat on the back of the truck and said, that's never happened. I've never done that before, and I don't know where it came from.
Wow.
Going into that one, when you think about repetition, right? You think about a crew that, when I look at my crew, when I had my incident, we came up in the apprenticeship together, right? So we knew each other. We're on that crew together for 4 years doing the work that we did, right? And we would go and do bare hand work 2 to 3 times a week, right? So we were pretty fluent at it.
Right.
And I'd like to say I've learned from it.
Yeah.
I've learned differently, actually. I'd like to say that we didn't have to really talk to each other because we knew what everybody had to do, and we knew what the next step was, and where each other was in this step, right? So this crew that had an incident, they were replacing sleeves on a circuit. They were going through and replacing automatic splices with press splices, right? And they go up. You got 2 linemen up in a bucket truck, line team up there, and they go on with their Mac on the first phase. They suck their bubble with their hoist. They cut the splice out, put the new press in, come off, go to the center phase. They do the same thing, come off, and then they go to the third phase, and they're out of sync.
Yeah.
Lineman 1 throws his Mac on there, and goes over and cuts without confirming and verifying that his partner has Mac'd out his side.
Yeah.
So here is the Mac sitting down here. Fortunate for them, that was a small little tap line. It wasn't a main feeder where they only had just a little spark in the air. It wasn't something that could have flashed over in their faces and hurt them, right? But it was a wake-up call.
Yeah.
They had the opportunity to identify now, okay, on the back end of an incident, now I learned something from this and I can make a change, right?
Yeah.
We can't trust in that happening, right? And that's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
That first one there, familiarity, routine, or repetition. trusting that because I've done this so much,
Yeah.
I don't need to think about it.
So I sort of, this is really cool. So I kind of liken this unto a relationship, say a marriage. When you nurture that friendship and that you're dating and you're getting to know your partner intimately, and not saying that line crews need to be intimate at all, but they have to be intentional, for sure. So after a while, you date, you get married, things, you ever heard the honeymoon wears off? And that's what, Lito, that's what you're saying. You're explaining to us that line team mentality. You know them for years and years. You've done these jobs so long together. The communication starts becoming more dispersed and more watered down. But you can't do that with any relationship, whether it's a line team, whether it's your marriage, any relationship, your best friend, or even your neighbor down the street. We cannot be so busy that we're stuck on our phone, we're stuck in watching the sports, and we can't take time out for our marriage. We can't take time out for our line team. I've seen so many times, Lito, just one quick example. I've done training for crews, and I'm watching, as I'm training an investor-owned or a cooperative, they'll have their contractors there, and they're not part of, and I don't understand why, they're not part of the training, which makes no sense to me. They're in the service center, and they're leaving. They're not taking advantage of the training, and they're literally leaving. And I'm watching a journeyman lineman drive the truck out, the bucket truck or the line truck, out of the service center, out of the gate, driving, paying attention. And the apprentice sitting right next to him, I've seen it so many times, on their phone, texting. So think about it. While they're working, four eyes are being paid to pay attention and work together as a line team in that line truck. How many line trucks get in accidents and they get hurt, the truck's destroyed, or they die? How many? And man, I tell you what, they're not working as a line team. The one guy that's not driving, he's busy on his phone, and the other guy is driving the truck. And we're not synchronizing. And that's what we're talking about here. We're becoming too familiar and routine-ish.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's good.
And not connecting.
Yeah.
Not connecting. You know, when you look at time pressure, what is time pressure at? Maybe, we're going to get in a hurry. What happens when we get in a hurry?
Yeah.
We're going to miss steps. You know, we're going to miss steps or make misjudgments because we're in a hurry.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You know, and we see that a lot in times when we get close to an end of a clearance. Oh, we got to have this circuit back, you know, and we misjudge how long it's going to take us to get this done, you know, versus going and, hey, making the call, hey, we're going to need the line for a little longer. And, you know, we try to rush through something and now something happens because we assumed that we could handle it.
Right.
You know, team dynamics, we talked a little bit about that, you know. Here we are with a crew that we've been with, you know, a crew that we've been with for a while, but we can still have assumptions within that, right?
That's right.
Whereas going in and doing a JHA, and now we got a brand new apprentice, right? Who's not feeling comfortable bringing anything up, right? So we need to make sure that he one, not just has the opportunity, but is required to say something during that JHA,
Right.
Right? Hey, what are your concerns?
Right.
Right? What's your role? I need to know that you know what your role is, so that I know we're on the same page. And two, if there's anything out of that you have questions about, now's the time for you to speak up. This is your turn now, you know, versus saying, hey, are there any questions? Sometimes that new guy's not going to speak up.
So this is so important that those apprentices should be trained and practice into speaking up. So even though the job is the same as yesterday, we need to allow the apprentice to speak. We need to practice allowing them to share any concerns at all and to review their roles, even though it's the same role from earlier that morning or from last week, exact same role. But let's allow them to voice and to review their role. And that's that 3-point communication, acknowledgement. So we're not assuming they know their role because they did it last week. Because I tell you what, I've seen guys that have done the same thing over and over, literally, where they're using their gloves on a task. I've had one lineman come up to me and say they literally forgot, 25-year journeyman lineman, using his gloves, and at this one task, he literally forgot to wear his gloves, and he got popped. It was low voltage, a couple hundred volts. He got popped with a couple hundred volts in this capacitive test point situation because he wasn't wearing gloves. And that's how we are as humans. So we always got to have that communication, that 3-point communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you hit right on the next one right there. Lack of clear communication. Right? Yeah. If you're not synced up as a team and everybody on the same page, you're walking into a job site with a blindfold on. Something's going to bite you. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't bite you that day, you got away with it. What's that breed?
Yeah.
Familiarity, routine, all that stuff comes behind it. It worked yesterday.
Yeah.
We're good to go for today. Sooner or later, that's going to get you.
So like normalization of deviation?
Yep.
Yeah. Man.
Yep. And then, so, I mean, when we think about this, Brent, the cost of trusting assumption is too great, right?
Yeah.
You know, the cost of trusting an assumption, this is the job site that I was on when I had my accident. I worked a lot up in this right away. Mm-hmm. Spent a lot of time up here. Loved working on the 500, loved working under helicopters and working bare hand. I was a different person back then. I went to work because I loved doing what I do. I wanted to get the work done. I wanted to be out there with my friends. And I missed a lot of stuff at home, mm-hmm. right? My kids were little. You know, but going out there with that mentality and not thinking about, okay, what am I going to do today that's going to ensure me getting home mm-hmm. at the end of the day so I can be with my loved ones? Because I'll tell you right now, those 5 people waiting at home for me right now, they're my life. Mm-hmm. You know, yes, I love the trade. I love the work that we do. I love being a service to our communities, or you know, a hero to firefighters. Mm-hmm. But that means nothing to me if I don't get home at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And now my wife's left to raise our 4 kids by herself, you know? And so for me, when I had my accident and I'm sitting in the hospital and my wife shows up and sets my 7-month-old, my youngest, in my lap, that's when it got real for me.
Yeah.
How truly horrific this could have been. Not necessarily for me.
Right.
But for them. Mm-hmm. You know, and I know what they would have had to go through because I lost my dad to an accident when I was 2 years old. 2.5 years old.
Yeah.
And you know, so I know what it would be like to not have me around, you know, and things like this. I mean, I came out here to beautiful South Carolina, my mm-hmm. favorite state. Born and raised, lived in California my whole life. I got to tell you, South Carolina by far is my favorite place to be. And I brought my son.
Yeah.
To spend some time with him.
We don't want you all believing that South Carolina is
a
favorite
it's great,
place.
Guys,
okay?
It's great. we need more people out here, right?
But I like this. This triggered something in me, Lito. The cost of assumptions. This triggered something in me. So what Lito is sharing with us is that the assumption that we're trusting in, you said that. Mm-hmm. We trust in the assumption. Jimmy Vaughn gave a presentation here this last September, and it was called "Do What You Know, What You Know." And that's it. Do what you know that you know. And assumptions, when we react, and we have our functioning and we're performing these tasks on assumptions, that's not doing what we know that we know. So what we do is we're taking assumptions and we're creating this fake reality in our consciousness that they're real. And I'm telling you folks, assumptions are not truth. You could hit it, you could roll the dice, and you could get lucky. But I tell you what, the casinos, you want to roll dice in your work on the job, you're doing line work, you want to roll the dice, that's fine. Casinos were built to take your money, and they're very successful at it. And assumptions, they will take you out eventually. They will.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you, Brent. And so moving on, I know you see my Jenga blocks
Yeah, yeah.
before, right? Oh, I revamped them a little bit, as you
Okay.
can see.
Revamped jingle?
Yeah, they're all they're all numbered up here.
Yeah.
1 through 4.
Okay.
So these I've identified through the reviews that I've done, through asking people online and people that I work with what they thought the top 4 routine tasks
Yeah.
that assumptions come from, that where assumptions are bred, were, and these were the 4, right? Following established protocols. The whole we've done this 100 times. We know the steps. Number 2, role assignments and tasks understanding. Everybody knows their role and what they're supposed to do. So essentially assuming that your crew's in sync.
You're right.
At the end of the
Right.
job, right?
We're assuming.
The JHA.
That's right.
All right. 3. This is a big one for me. In my opinion, this would be number 1. But equipment checks. It worked yesterday, or so it should be fine now. A big one for me is, I look at my fly harness before that helicopter hooks up to me, and I put that harness on. I look at it, and I have a buddy check it too, right? I throw it on, and I go up there, and when we're working on steel against fiber, right?
Yeah.
Steel against fiber, that's a lot of rubbing, right?
Yeah.
Something could happen, but so when we come back, we fly back, and we go to the next tower, we need to be looking at that harness again, right?
Inspect everything.
But since I checked it this morning, it was good, and I wore it.
It's a different job.
It's good. Yeah. And
Different
so in my reframing risk presentation, we'll talk about an equipment failure that happened.
Yeah.
And the assumption was since this piece of equipment was inspected by mechanics, it's good to go.
Yeah.
I don't need to look at it. And it could have had a bad outcome. So with this, Brent, with those 4, what would you say out of those 4 is the one you see the most in the field when you're out there?
Man,
you having those conversations?
all of them are very powerful as far as lacking and potentially troubling and huge hazards, risks. I would say 2 and 4. 1, you have some compliance, but the role assignments and understanding of the role assignments to me is just really big. And environmental conditions, to me, being with the linemen for our 9 years now training safety, the environmental conditions are huge. And the reason why is because typically we focus on today, it's raining, so we have it's slippery, more slippery, the slips, trips, falls, things like that, the equipment, the arrangement of the components of our circuit that day. The environmental conditions change so greatly. The environmental conditions regarding the well-being of our crew, that will change. I'm telling you, that will change from hour to hour potentially. So we need to be aware of those emotions that people tend to allow themselves to be led by, which changes the whole environment of the crew. So I'll go with 2 and I'll go with 4.
2 and 4, okay.
Yeah, but they're all good.
So I want you to look at this Jenga tower, right? And go ahead, starting at the bottom, and take a 2 out.
Okay. Now I'm assuming 2 is on the same number on the other side.
It is.
Okay.
I'm going to help you out.
All right.
I'm going to help you out because sometimes teams
That
make
clock.
assumptions, right? And trust them.
Yeah. So the 2 I'm seeing here, he's telling me it's on the other side as well. I don't want to assume. He confirmed.
It is. They're
Okay,
all the same, right?
All right.
Okay, there you go. You're going to put it right there?
Yep.
Why don't you take out, you can't take out the next 4, right?
No, man.
Okay, but you can take out the next 4 up. So go ahead and take that 4. We're going to trust an assumption again, right? So take out that 4 right there.
All right.
Pop that out of there, right?
I'm not a, what do you call this game?
Jenga.
Jenga?
Yeah, you're good at it, dude. Your hands are solid, man.
So I am not a Jenga professional. I don't do Jenga Olympics every 4 summers. So
okay. So those are two different assumptions that we made, right?
Yeah.
We got away with them.
yeah.
Right? Okay, let's go back to a number 2.
Number 2.
Yep.
I got to start at the bottom?
Yeah, dude.
Well, if I take that out, I know for sure what's going to happen.
Okay.
But can I go to the next layer?
Let's go to the next layer.
Is that okay?
Next layer. Take the next layer.
Okay. So I got to put this up here, right?
Put it up
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Okay.
Folks.
No, did you see that when we put that up there? What's
wobbly,
happening there?
Little wobbly. The
Okay.
job site's getting a little dangerous, folks. All right. So I go to number 2, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So center on the third row.
Center on the third row, which that feels pretty good. It's sliding. It's pretty smooth.
Yeah, you're doing it easy. That's the easy ones. The middle
Yeah.
ones are always easy.
I feel confident about this. I might put my name in for the Jenga Summer Olympics in a few years.
You got it. But look at that, dude.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
getting more sketchy.
So I'm going to tell you, you chose number 4, right?
Yes, sir.
So fourth row up.
Fourth row up.
That's a
That's a 4.
that's a 4. So why don't you go ahead and take that 4 out?
Wow.
Let's see what happens here.
Wow. Dang, that doesn't feel
That,
good.
that's an assumption you made.
That does not feel good.
And because we're a line
know.
team, we're a line team. I'm going to trust your assumption with
That
you.
does not feel good.
Okay.
But
So I'll
I feel some
help you out for
friction.
now. I'll help you out
Feel
for
more
now.
friction.
Okay.
Woo. Okay, we're good so far? Okay.
Now, go ahead.
Okay.
Put it up there. You got to finish the task.
I got to at least
got-
be tactical.
You got to finish the task.
Try to be tactical.
Okay.
Okay.
So with those assumptions,
Man.
we've trusted a few assumptions today, right?
Yeah.
On the job site, same job site.
Yeah.
Right? But what we didn't take into account were all the other circumstances that could be happening, right?
Yeah.
Somebody driving their car through our job site,
Yeah.
right? We set up cones, but we didn't set up any protection for the workers.
Right.
Right? Because cones don't protect workers. They just warn people that there's a
That's
job
right.
site right
That's
right
right.
there, right? So when that happens,
Whoa.
because we destabilized by trusting our assumptions, we destabilized our safety that
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like when I go back to my accident
Yeah.
that day, right? I did not know I was going to need that fall protection, right?
So
And had I had my fall protection on when I got locked up by that OPGW,
Yeah.
all I would have had to do is let go and fall in my harness, and I would have been away from what was hurting me. But because I didn't have it on, I
Yeah.
had to hold on and sit there and get lit up until I could figure out how to get away from it.
well, now this brings back another point. All right. So Mr. Lito here, he has me pulling out these assumptions. Okay. Now check this out. I'm gonna bring you all back to that day, that fateful day, Mr. Lito, 2015, right? Mm-hmm. He's with his crew. Now check this out, okay? And Lito and I didn't rehearse this, so this is kind of fun. This is a lot of fun. But Lito's making these assumptions. So in other words, I'm pulling out. I'm Lito, okay? I'm Lito just for a minute, all right? And me being Lito, I'm pulling out these blocks. But I know for a fact that when they went over the job briefing prior to their work, that at the same time, after the job briefing and during the job briefing, Lito's crew, as Lito's pulling out these blocks, check this out. Lito's crew simultaneously, they're pulling out blocks as he's pulling out blocks because everybody on that crew is making assumptions together. So it even becomes more unstable than you can imagine. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah. No, you're right. Like, I mean, good example.
Or is Lito right or wrong?
No, Lito's right.
I'm Lito
Lito's
right now.
always right.
Okay, Lito's right. Okay.
No, thinking back to that day, right? I show up at the job site. My first question was, did to myself was, did the crew fly to all the work
Yeah.
locations, right?
And the rest of them?
because we always did it.
Yeah.
I assumed that it was done,
And they're thinking the
and
same.
I didn't speak it up.
Yeah.
And at the tailboard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't voice my concerns or question that assumption, at the end of that tailboard, they all assumed everybody.
Yeah. So
was
they're
good to
pulling
go.
out.
So
So
they're
they
pulling
assume.
out blocks
So
too.
they're pulling out blocks too. Dang. It's caught. Okay.
And the killer for me,
Yeah.
be real quick, Brent.
Yeah.
Is that assumption
I'm
I
not
made
Lito.
that day?
I'm not Lito.
No, you're Brent right now.
Okay. Okay.
That assumption I made that day,
Yeah.
for me, the weight that I feel is, what if that assumption ended up with one of my brothers in the hospital versus me, or even worse, in the ground.
And their family is what? The picture, you can get scissors and you can cut that picture of your friend out of their family picture. How's that? How's that? And that's the way it's going to be.
And now I have to live with that.
Yeah. Wow.
You know?
Wow. This is powerful. So real quick, compound interest. This is the positive side of compound interest, okay? It's interesting, right? And you put money in the bank, and nowadays you can put money in the bank and actually earn a little bit of interest, believe it or not. So that's kind of good. And so you can get return on your investment as compound interest. That's positive. But when here's the negative side. When you have compound assumptions, what happens is now you're creating that sine wave that's on the negative side of the zero crossing, and now that whole assumptions down here at that negative, the trough of that sine wave is the negative side. Now your whole job site, everybody's pulling these blocks, your whole job site becomes a hazard. And it's a hidden hazard. You were talking about that, how you're blindfolded while you're playing this Jenga game.
Yep.
I love it.
Sure.
Great, man, that was awesome.
For sure.
Love it.
I'm glad you like my children's toy.
Yeah, it was nice to be Lito for a moment.
Yeah,
even just for a moment.
So I do want to talk a little bit about those 4 assumptions that we talked about, because there are things to learn from it. My question for you on this, Brent, this one, what we've done this 100 times. We know the steps, right? So assuming that you know the procedure versus looking at a checklist, right? I can do this with my eyes closed. I can go ahead and do this. What are some specific steps or details that you tend to get skipped when teams feel comfortable with routine? And let's go back to what you do. You guys produce electrical test equipment that we use in the field, right? When you're out there training guys, have you seen people make assumptions on the use of those tools?
Oh yeah, they'll be using the tools. They'll be next to ground planes. They'll be using the voltage indicators or phasing tools with the tool next to another hot phase, when obviously there's current running through the tool from another phase, but yet they have the tool next to a phase. They'll have improper body position where their bodies are coupling capacitively with another phase. Lead linemen too, I get these calls. And it's amazing. It's amazing what happens, and then they call us and say, hey, this tool's no good. We're getting the wrong answers. We're getting false readings. So the tool's no good. They're assuming the tool's no good, but the tool's telling them, actually, they're working unsafe. And the tool's telling them that they're working unsafe. So yeah.
And then on the backside of that, also saying, well, this tool's messed up.
Right.
It's telling me something that I'm not.
Yeah, they're assuming it's the tool's fault,
Yeah.
but not theirs.
Yeah. So I'm going to pose this question for you to ponder, but the viewers mainly, I want you to think about this. How often do you check yourself and your team to ensure you're not skipping steps on familiar tasks? What could go wrong if just one step was overlooked? And so think about that. I want you to look at the way that you do things, and is this something that you're doing, right? We'll help you understand what you can do if that is the case. Next one was it worked yesterday, so it's good to go, right? For me, a good example of this one was, when you think about the job sites that you're working at, right? This one incident that I reviewed for a client, it's a large project, right? Over months, right? And they were at a work location, and something fell through at that work location that they couldn't finish the work at that location, so they went and did other locations, and 6 months later came back to this location. Okay.
So there's things left on the table, things forgotten.
Yep. So when they came here to this work location, they set a brand new pole, right? And they were the first ones in the dirt. They had a USA that day, dug, it was all clear, put that pole in there. And now when they came back 6 months later, it was a night clearance, and they were going to
So now it's dark.
It's dark.
Yeah.
They'd been working all night.
Wow.
Right?
Tired.
3 o'clock in the morning, right?
Wow.
And now they get to this location. They're cutting the overhead to underground, so they got a hot riser coming down
Yeah.
into the ground, right? And they needed to add a ground rod. It only had one ground rod, and they needed to add another ground rod for a lightning arrestor. They did not have a USA, right? But they assumed because 6 months ago,
Yeah.
it was clear that they could just drive that ground rod right in there. The apprentice had his ground rod driver, gas powered ground rod driver, drove a ground rod in there, right into the energized million cable,
Wow.
locked out the circuit.
Wow.
Fortunately, the concentric went to ground underground, and he didn't see any of that.
Wow.
Right? But it could have been a bad day for that crew.
Right.
Right? When they vac trucked that open, not realizing that, we made a mistake. Yeah, we got into our own stuff. We looked at what was in the ground there. After they finished that pull 6 months prior,
Yeah.
phone came through,
Wow.
gas came through,
Wow.
everything came through that right away. And so when they opened it up, there was all kinds of utilities around that pole
Yeah.
that they didn't identify because they didn't do a USA. And so, you know,
can you let everybody know there's going to be some apprentices and everything? USA. Can you just let us know?
Oh, USA? Oh yeah,
what that stands for.
USA dig safe, right? So anytime we excavate, before we disturb the dirt, we have to verify that there's no utilities underground, right? No matter what, no matter what we're putting in the dirt, ground rod, shovel, if we're going deep, we need to make sure that we're clear. You should not be disturbing the dirt unless you have a USA or a dig safe. You know, calling 811 to get that.
So I would like to just real quick add a little thing, because Lito gets my wheels turning here, and I don't have very many wheels, okay? But anyways, as my wheels are turning, maybe more like probably a unicycle, what I'm thinking here is the way I like to train linemen around the country is you got to treat each day as a new, fresh day. So in other words, you did this job, you're coming back to it 6 months later. You got to treat this job as if you were not there 6 months ago, as if you were not there yesterday. You have to treat every single day, even driving into your service center. When you drive in your service center, I drive here at bierermeters, here at our shop in Blythewood, South Carolina. When I'm in the shop, hopefully I'm at the shop and staying home with my wife. Today, I had to look at today as a whole new, fresh day. We have rain on the streets. I knew it was going to happen. I allowed more time for driving. I slowed down way ahead of time before every stoplight. I have to allow more distance between me and the drivers around me, and be aware of these drivers texting and driving, and add a little more space along the sides and everything. So today has to be a fresh day, even though I do this every day. Has to be a fresh day. Your job as a line team, your job leaving your house and going to that service center or going to the job site, if you've got a company truck or whatever have you, if you're working late and you've got to re-engage in a job that you were at a week ago or whatever, it's got to be looked at as a fresh day. Very fresh, everything.
Yep. That it is a good way to put it, Brent, because it puts you in the mindset of, I've never done this before. You know, this is new to me. Like, you know, I'm going to check myself throughout the day. You know, and so for the viewers, I'm going to ask you to think about this question: have you ever seen a task get missed or duplicated because roles weren't clearly defined? And then how would a quick confirmation of responsibilities have made a difference? You know, and we're going to talk about that moment, that cruise sync moment, in reframing risk.
Nice.
So that you guys have the tools to use in the field to challenge assumptions. Moving on to the third one, it worked fine yesterday, so it's good to go, right?
Yep.
It's not gonna have any issues today. Brent, in your experience, what types of equipment issues have you seen come up unexpectedly, even when everything seemed fine the day before?
Yeah, again, with our equipment, they're phasing. and the tool, they've had it for months or they've had it for years, and then they go into a scenario where they're phasing, and it's like they don't understand that in this substation there's some tight tolerances, and there's hot phases, there's different circuits, different phases in close proximity. And so the tool is getting confused. It's picking up the corona, the capacitance from another phase. It's getting confused, and now the tool's not working properly because it's bouncing back and forth in phases, and they're not understanding to get the tool out of the way. As from this phase, where it was for all these different other jobs, it was out of the corona of these other phases. Well, now it's acting up, but it's not. It's just not being used properly with that understanding. But I do want to, going on to another piece of equipment, Lito, this is pretty powerful. This has stuck with me for a long time. Years ago, there was a guy that was going to do some training for some elementary kids. And he was going to use the bucket truck to kind of introduce the elementary kids to line work and all that. So what happened is he took the bucket out. He took the bucket truck out, extended it, and the boom itself snapped from the truck and fell to the ground, and the guy doing the training for the elementary kids passed. He died. But what was amazing is, and this is it right here, buddy. This is it. Is he did not know, and he did not check that bucket truck. That bucket truck was used to pull wire the day before. The bucket. They actually used the bucket itself to pull wire.
Overstressed it.
Overstressed a bunch of those bolts, holding that down to the frame of that bucket truck, the strength and the foundation of that boom. And no one said anything. It was used improperly, and he didn't check it prior to. And man, can you imagine? In front of the kids.
Yeah. Sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real stuff.
You know, and in the reframing risk presentation, we dive into an incident review that I did on a brake failure, where that same thing. You know, this was the driver's first day driving that truck.
Yep.
You know, and coming into it not knowing how it was treated beforehand.
Yeah.
You know, it's those outside circumstances, those outside stressors that add into an already hazardous job.
And we assume everything's fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
So last one, conditions are the same as they were yesterday.
Yeah.
Or I had to add that parentheses there. You know, the last work location. You know, every work location we go to is unique. On the front end, when we're talking about the work we do, right? Coming out here, doing a hazard assessment for the work that we do.
Yeah.
How often do you think people are thinking about the what if something happens? What if something goes wrong side of things? You know, the emergency action plan.
Right.
You know, when I shared a ECOS 22.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Emergency action planning. Right.
That's a good one, by the way. Very good.
You know, when you think about it, you go out to do your job, right? It's easy for like somebody that's working in an office, you know, and they're in the same building every day to have the same emergency action plan. Kind of, you know, this is where the fire extinguisher is. This is what where the phone is. The AED's over here. This is who we're calling. This is our location. All this stuff. But when we get out in the field and we're in all these dynamic places, it changes, right? And so here we have you know, an incident where a lineman, two linemen fell off of a pole 60 feet, and one of them was hurt very bad. And the emergency action plan was initiated. 911 was called. Life flight helicopters showed up, and EMS showed up, and they were very remote. But they didn't include in their emergency action plan how they got to the job site. They hiked in with tools on their back, up a rope, hand over hand, you know, pulling themselves up a rope to get to this work location. So when EMS showed up, it wasn't the right guys for the job. Right. When the helicopter showed up, they didn't have hoist capability, so they couldn't hoist, you know, somebody down to help him and bring him back up. You know, so it took a lot of time to get out there.
Wow.
So the crew, assuming that emergency action plan that worked for this location or that location, right, would work for this one.
Yeah.
when that on the back end of our, like, what if something happens
Right.
side of things,
Right.
we should be just paying even more attention to that than we are to the hazards that will hurt us on the job and
Yeah.
cause something to happen, right? Because when something happens, that's when we need to be on point.
That's right.
You know, we need to make sure that we know how to address any of the issues that might come up. You know, and it's very important. It's a hard thing to talk about. One of our brothers or sisters getting hurt in the field, right? But when something does happen in our industry, it's not going to be a Band-Aid fix. You know,
Yeah.
so you need to prepare for the worst,
Right.
So we need to practice those things, and so ensuring that when we go to a job site, each job site, we understand those things that contribute to or could contribute to getting in the way of us having a timely
Right.
response to our brother or sister
Yeah.
getting help, right?
So basically, another way to look at it is, in saying the same thing over again, we're basically paralleling the same reasoning here and understanding and mindset, is that we must, on each different location, we must prepare, what Lito's saying is, for the worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario? Oh, the linemen fall off the pole. Well, they didn't talk about that. They did not talk about the worst case scenario prior to that worst case scenario actually happening. But if they had spoken about the worst case scenario and planned how would the emergency action plan look like, what would it look like for that worst case scenario, I'm telling you folks, that worst case scenario that did happen would not have happened at all. That's what Lito's telling.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing, and this is huge, because we think everything's going to go smooth. We're going to get her done, and we're going to get that work order, just check mark it off, and that's it. That's what we did yesterday, and we got to stop that thinking. We have to stop it.
You've been lucky.
Yeah.
You know, trusting those assumptions over and over again. You've been lucky until
Right.
the day you're not lucky, right?
Yeah.
And they catch up to you, and so
Man, that's awesome.
with this one, I'll ask the audience to think about this one. When was the last time a small change in the environment caught you off guard? How could regular assessments help prevent surprises like this? So think about that. In closing with this, I want to assure you that there is hope. I mean, I think that it kind of feels like this whole conversation's been doom and gloom a bit, right?
Maybe.
It's the darker side of the things that we do, right? But there's a way out. This Ask, Adapt, and Act, I've been working,
Did you come up with that?
putting together. Yeah,
You did?
I put.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
That's pretty good
I
stuff.
put it together. This is I've been testing it with one of my clients.
Yeah.
The client that had 12 work procedure errors last
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
They've had 2 this year.
Wow.
By implementing this and me coaching them through how to properly use it with their team.
Triple A.
And so, join us on the next webinar.
Yeah.
Here, we're going to dive into how to use this tool and talk a little bit more about reframing risk.
I like it. I like it.
And so, with that, I mean, if there aren't any questions for me, that's all I had, Brent.
Does anybody out there have any questions? So if you don't have any questions, that's fine. You're going to find out how to contact Lito with your questions. If you do, if you're watching this webinar 2 years from now, man, contact Lito with your questions, and he'll help lead you in the right direction. That's what he does. He leads safe line workers, and he's really good at it. And I'm not just saying it, but that's cool. The triple A. What do you got?
AAA framework.
Yeah, I like it. You came up with that?
Yeah.
I didn't know you were that smart, Lito.
No.
I did not know.
I get lucky every once in a while.
Dang, you nailed that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so watch the next one, right?
Yeah.
The
So
next-
and if you're watching right now, take a picture of the QR code. That'll take you to my website. Otherwise, pause it. Take a picture of that. My website's there at the bottom. All my information, LinkedIn, everything's on that QR code.
Is that really your picture? That's not really you.
That's me, bud.
I didn't know you were so handsome.
That's me.
Dang.
Well, no, that's you playing me.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Awesome. Well, stay tuned for Lito's next episode. you could consider this maybe part one of his doubleheader. So game one, part one, game one, and I won't be in the next one, which is good because it's too much pressure for me. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.